So hello and welcome. Today we are in conversation with Himanshu Bhatt, who's joining us from Mumbai, India. Hi Himanshu, how are you?
I'm good, Sandeep. How are you?
Doing very good, doing very good. So Himanshu, you've had an extensive career in the field of marketing. If I see your profile, you've been a marketing leader. You've worked in multiple dimensions of marketing, which include digital transformation, omni-channel, creating an omni-channel digital strategy. You've worked in e-commerce advertising, the processes related to it, and capability development when it comes to building a workforce. And you worked with some of the leading organizations, mainly in India, if I understand correct. You're currently employed as general manager of the digital and brand marketing division at Food Services India Ltd. You worked as head of digital marketing at Unicharm India. You worked with OLX, which is a leading global company, and you were working in the India division, and you worked with Leo Burnett, to just name a few organizations, right?
Yeah.
And we are glad that you're launching your online course on edVentr, which is on the power of branding.
Yeah.
Right now branding is a very critical aspect for any organization, right? We tend to associate with brands, and it's like a lifelong journey that some people walk with any particular brand that they associate with. Now, giving an example, one of the more popular brands is Apple, right? At different stages, it has not been the technologically most sophisticated brand, but it has been the popular choice, right? If I know that there's a Samsung mobile phone which may be better in features as compared to an Apple phone, I'll still wait for the next release to probably buy that Apple phone, which is because of the experience that it provides, which is because probably the story that it tells. It is a premium product, so it is definitely a sort of a status symbol. Secondly, when this entire journey of Apple started, they said we are challenging the status quo, right? This was a think different campaign all about, and people just connected with the brand, right? Of course, it is superior in terms of technology in a lot of aspects, maybe ways, but still it is. But people have lived along with the brand, right? And you have been in marketing, in leadership positions, with regards to marketing, where you see marketing from a strategic standpoint, right? And based on your experience, a the situation is, working with a strong brand, b with a not so strong brand. How easy does a marketing role become when you're working with a strong brand, or what are the challenges of working with a strong brand?
Yeah, that's a very interesting and nice question, Sandeep. Just to before I get into this point, let me just explain you as you talked about Apple and Samsung. What happens? There are products and then there are brands. A product will promise a feature to you, okay, but brand promises something else, which is more than a feature. It's an emotional and a functional promise which brand delivers to you. Okay, so let's say if you compare, most of the time Samsung, you will find out feature wise completely loaded, have faster RAM, faster better screens. Actually, a lot of technological enhancements would be there, but the promise which Apple's gives you is the personalization, right? Whereas the promise of Samsung is completely differently. It's a very different promise. Samsung works on technology for each and everyone. That's the promise which Samsung delivers, and that's why you will have a phone of Samsung probably in 5,000 rupees also, and at 1 lakh rupees as a price also. But Apple delivers personalization, and for that personalization, they create the entire ecosystem such as that people would like to buy that particular product, right? Uh, so there's very difference between a nice product and a nice brand. Now the problem comes. Okay, so there are pretty good advantage to work with a nice brand as a marketeer, because uh, then you know what exactly and how the journey of this brand has developed, uh, the entire ecosystem within the communities or the customers, consumers, retailers, everything, right? uh, from that standpoint, working in a bigger brand is very, I would say, process oriented also, and sometimes for a marketeer it's very difficult also. Okay, because you need to live up to that brand's promise, and that becomes really very difficult exercise. So as you said, you use the word brand and branding. Okay, brand, probably, if in today's world, if I look at brand is not just a symbol. It's a promise. It's a human being. Any brand, you can relate it to a personality of a human being. Okay, and branding is making sure every time you deliver to that expectation what consumer is having. So it's a continuous process. Branding is a continuous process to develop that brand's personality or persona. For a no, for a brand which is not very popular, or let's say a very weak brand, what happens? The capabilities there could be completely different. A lot of time people focus, or marketeers focus a lot on product, developing a product, but not a lot on developing a brand. And that's where a weak brand comes into play. Okay, because they have not focused on how the consumers will perceive it. There are fantastic products in the past which has been made, but they were disastrous brands. Okay, or let's say a very weak brand probably have created a very good product which were never able to take off because some other brand came into picture and probably took the market. So this is how it works, because strong brands get resonated with the TG very fast, and weak brands doesn't. So you, this is an effort to create brand. And a long time back, uh, Leo Burnett said it takes around 40 years to develop brand. Product you can make in 6 months, but today I would say with the internet and other things, a possibility is that you can still make a brand in 5 to 10 years. But yeah, there's a lot of efforts which has to be built in terms of developing a brand.
Definitely what we all observe, a brand definitely outlives the product, right? And people may ignore the product if they relate with the brand. Now we see a lot of organizations are beyond the product, right?
Yeah, yeah,
McDonald's is just not only selling burgers. Starbucks is not just a coffee, right?
yeah,
Nike is just not a shoemaker. I think, if I remember correct, I saw this recent advertising campaign that they did, which was probably related to the Black Lives Matter, but showcasing, a social issue which was way beyond what we may call as a shoe,
yeah.
right? Or a sport clothing apparel. So it's definitely telling a larger story. It is
Yeah.
basically associating with certain causes or certain social aspects, or like continuing for Apple, it's challenging the status quo. We're not talking about normal. Only if you're challenging the status quo, you're using an Apple, and that somewhere creates a sort of a connect. Or we see a Nike being associated with society that has recently been discriminated, and it's standing up for them. So I may believe in that
Yeah.
brand a bit more, right? And how do you see organizations playing this role, or going beyond the product, and adopting a larger cause to form a strong connect with the human psyche or with human beings in at large?
So we need to consider it at the two level. Uh, any brand cannot speak anything outside of its product. A brand is not just a logo or a symbol, it's a promise to their customers or the consumers. And if there are customers and consumers want to see today how a brand has to be perceived, this is how the branding strategy keep on changing. Uh, so, for example, if we talk about Coke, Coke doesn't sell soda; they sell happiness, and that's what the brand's promise is. Volvo doesn't sell a car; it sells safety. Yeah, Mercedes sells luxury. So, this is what the brand's promise is. Ultimately, all these are products, right? But what is the value an organization would like to build in? So, for example, if Mercedes believes in giving luxury to the customer, that is what they are going to build in their products. Okay. Unlike Ferrari, which wants speed, there's no point having a luxury if there is no speed. So, Ferrari probably would not make a car like Mercedes or Rolls Royce for that example, but they would definitely make a car which has power in it. That's their promise. And wherever the problem comes, sometimes people get confused on the product features and the promise which they want to develop. And that's where a lot of confusing products come into picture. Branding get here and there. A lot of campaigns sometimes has to be some tactical initiatives to make sure the brands are in talk. Okay. Uh, but again, those tactical campaigns has to come from a overall brand strategy. What and how. And there is another thing, as you spoke about, what are the cause a brand should take and other things. So, for example, if you talk about Unilever talk about sustainability, and that's the cause which they have taken, and that's why Unilever focuses a lot on the food products. And then they will talk about a sustainable farming, sustainable food supply, sustainable business, and all those kind of things. We cannot see a cause, okay, which is not related to business somehow. Every cause a brand should take that has to somewhere engage with the business cause or their business processes or business practices. Let's say if I am a milk manufacturing company, for example, I was just saying example, if I'm a milk manufacturing company, and instead of talking about sustainability or best dairy practices or creating something which changes the entire life of the farmers or the dairy farmers, and I go and start talking about some other thing which I believe in, let's say probably a global citizenship or something like that, it won't create an impact because I am not in that business. Okay, same ways when Nike spoke about all these things, Nike is a sports brand. And when they look at sports, they look at the communities of sports. And that is where they position themselves. It's not the caste, creed, and religion. It's all about the sports. And all their campaigns, historically, they talk about these kind of things. They have taken into the other campaign level, which is good and which is fine. It's a tactical approach to look at the brand, but this is what they believe in. Okay, and this is how they work on. And this is how I think every brand have developed their story and things like that. For example, Amul in India, entire white revolution in farming and everything, they still talk about the well-being of the farmers. They don't. Amul doesn't go and talk about any other thing in terms of the cause. So this is where a thin line. Sometimes a lot of brand managers become over enthusiastic and try to get into in every aspect of tactical or a top point kind of a thing. Oh, we need to be in talks, and that is always not a very good strategy while you are developing brands. The social causes has to have a business process in line. Otherwise, these are not sustainable. Neither the social cause nor the campaign. Both of them will not be sustainable.
Definitely. I mean, it has to connect with what your underlying business at the end of the day is, right? And as you said, if a company that is in FMCG, in a country like India or in a country like Africa or any other emerging economy, it's working with the entire supply chain, right?
Correct.
And at the last mile of the supply chain, maybe or the first mile of the supply chain, maybe at the grassroots level. So you have to ensure that there's sustainability all through the supply chain, and it becoming a value chain of sorts. Right
Correct.
now, one thing is that we have seen that uh, you know to develop a brand, you need to be very consistent with your brand promise, right? And as you said, that it takes years, or it takes time, to develop a brand, right? If you look at a lot of startups, they're not consistent. I mean, they may be consistent, some of them are consistent, but a lot of these organizations pivot, because at the beginning they may find that this is what the right message is, but once the rubber meets the road, once you get into business, you realize that the industry is different. Like any other business idea or like any other entrepreneurial initiative, organizations pivot to find what their niche is. And the same thing is happening with their branding strategy. How do you see it as a correct practice? I mean, do you have to be very strict in terms of the values that you follow? I mean, more about the values, the branding message that you are giving, or it is okay for any young organization to evolve, right, based on what the current market is or what the need of the hours, right? What is your thought process on that?
See, there are two, three things, Sandeep, which I've seen in the industry, how it works. And I've been part of such competitive journeys also, where I've seen sometimes brands are being successful and a lot of time failing. For example, I'll give you a classic example of OLX and Quicker. Indian classified business, heavy wars during, I think, 2014 to 2018. They were fighting each other. Um, but OLX had a consistent messaging. Sell it on OLX. Okay. Quicker got into different messaging. Sometimes they talked about job market, sometimes they talk about car selling, sometimes they talked about let's say logistics and free of cost something, and they put in heavy monies there. But if you come to India and talk to anybody about which is the online classified you prefer, it's all OLX because the consistency of the messaging. Okay, so brand has to communicate the message customers are looking at. See, there are two, three things where maximum organization faces the challenges, and specifically young organizations. We think this is what our value is, and this is what we would like to promote. But value has to be seen from the perspective of the customer. Obviously, how it works. For example, if I look at, I want to provide a quality service. Uh, let's say I'm a car service company, and I want to provide a quality service to my consumer or my customers. Up now, I can see quality service means that I would have probably a jet coming in, taking customer, whatever. I can do all those kind of things. Okay, probably we'll create a lounge where customer is coming and this and that. But your customer is willing to pay only, let's say, $1,000 for that. Okay, and his service requirement, a quality service requirement for him could be somebody comes, pick up my car, get to the garage, finish it, fix it, and deliver it to me. And whatever time they have promised, this is what I consider quality. Now there is a serious perception gap. What a marketeer is thinking, the quality, and what a customer is thinking, what is quality. And if you go overboard with the quality, then you bound to fail on your promise because customer will never appreciate that value what you are giving. Because for them, that value is what like you can't because for him, if I go and take this car to a service station, I would be giving, let's say, 800 rupees. Just you are providing a pick and drop, I can give 1,000 rupees. But to go and sit in a lounge in terms of quality, I'm not going to give you 5,000 rupees. Because every brand promise and the quality on the value of the brand has to be seen from the customer's eyes. And that's where a lot of new organizations fail to understand. And for them, branding is so okay. For them, branding becomes very tactical. Let us invest something in here, put some money, let's see what is happening. Oh, it's not working, let's change this strategy. All that is good, but there has to be an overall strategy what you need to look at, and then you need to tweak around those in terms of values. But if you're changing campaigns a lot, that becomes very difficult. So, for example, Marlboro's Cowboy campaign, it's probably the oldest campaign running on Earth. It is 60 years old campaign, still being run in a lot of countries, and that's what make the cowboy makes Marlboro the Marlboro thing, right? Whatever the Marlboro's brand value today is, that cowboy image for the Marlboro Red. But these are the kind of things which we need to take into consideration because customers get confused. Oh, today you're saying something, tomorrow you're saying something else. So, what exactly you want to sell to us, or what is your promise? And when customers get confused, it looks at your sales also. You will have abrupt uh, sales trends. Probably whenever you are running a campaign, probably your sales goes up. Once you stop the campaign, it goes down because there's no promise. What is that they're looking at? And that's what I think a lot of companies make mistake while devising their values and understanding and not understanding it from the customer's point of view.
Exactly. And I mean, many a times it's also about self-reflection for that enterprise, for the business in terms of what is it that we stand for, who we are. Many a
Right.
times organizations see an opportunity, which may be a P&L opportunity or which may be an opportunity, based on a business plan. I remember I've been fascinated with this subject of design thinking, right? And I've tried to learn it at my own level, in terms of how design thinking helps launch new initiatives or create brand strategies, or even develop a brand. Now, when we talk of design thinking, it starts, the discussion starts with the customer. what is it that the customer is looking for that is in alignment with the potential product or the product that you're offering,
Yeah.
right? The discussion does not begin from a viability or a feasibility standpoint. It does not begin from what are your projections, what is the idea all about, or how do you see the P&L growing. And this is something that I've seen in a lot of researches that have happened, that business is not only the success of a business is not determined only by your idea or the projections that you've created. It's a lot deeper, but what has been identified as a core is what does the customer want, right?
Right. Right.
That is defining your product, and based on that the brand strategy is created. Do you think a lot of organizations really think through this process of creating and understanding what their brand really is, or what is it that they stand for, or it's a decision taken in haste, which results in shorter durability of the organization, or short-lived brands, or changes in the messaging that the organization is giving? But are organizations really focusing on this long-term strategy, and are they going
Uh,
deep with it to understand who they are?
Okay, so I'll answer it in a few phases. So, for example, if you look at most of the multinational companies, they really care about their brands. So they invest in developing brands. But if you look at country-wise local grown businesses, uh, their approach is still pretty old in terms of understanding, or because, okay, how you need to look at this is that a lot of companies are very good manufacturing companies. They can make excellent products. They're very good inventors. There's a possibility they don't know how to create the brand or how the branding works, because for them, sometimes in the head of a business owner, or let's say a marketeer, if my product is good, it is going to sell. But it doesn't work like this, because if your product is good, you need to tell this to customer why it is good, what is the promise. Okay, because then only the customer is going to try it and use it, and then evaluate whether you are standing on the promise what you are delivering or not. And that's where the biggest problem comes. Now, when it comes to branding, mostly multinational companies I've seen working on a approach which is long term, and they look at their targets, look at things that, okay, what is the brand saliency they are looking at, what is the kind of top of mind awareness they are looking at, and basis that, then they look at what is the kind of investment they would have to do, okay, whether it's feasible in this year or not. So as you're saying, every good brand manager would first look at his P&L objectives. Actually, every good manager would look at his P&L objective. What is the top line and what is the bottom line the guy has to maintain? Now, the second question comes, in order to maintain this, what is that this guy has to do and why he has to do this? If he's able to answer those questions, then comes how I am going to do this. And once how comes fixed, it becomes fixed, then only you will understand, in order to get this kind of a business, what is the kind of investment I would have to put in into brand or branding and other things. Okay, then the decision might be, should I look at a 60% awareness rate, or should I look at 100% awareness, considering the kind of financials I need to manage? And then they set the expectation right and probably create a plan. This year I'm looking at 60 because this is how the financials looks like. Next year I will look at 65. Next year I will look at 75. And gradually they will develop a plan. But the problem comes when the expectation is to have 100% awareness, okay, with no budgets in hand. And that's where the entire confusion happens. And that's where brands, uh, that's where the brands fail, because you don't know what is that exactly you are looking at. And branding, as I said, it's a continuous process. The objective here is that you need to make sure people know you. You need to make sure they try you. And you need to make sure they love you. So there are three-step process actually. Every time you will have to do it, and this has to come from every time, because customer needs are changing. So if customer needs are changing and you are able to deliver on that promise, and you're continuously working on this, then your brand become popular. Else it won't.
Definitely, it's about nurturing a relationship like any other relationship. You grow into a relationship, and it takes time. It does not happen. You can have love at first sight, whereas
Correct.
a brand may excite you, but if you want to nurture it, if you want it to be long term, you have to grow into that relationship, and you have to nurture it. Right now, you mentioned a very interesting thing, and you said that once Leo Burnett stated that it takes 40 years to build a brand approximately, and in today's day and age, it may happen in 5 to 10 years. I personally have seen that social media plays a phenomenal role. Right today, creation of content, distribution of content has become much easier. Right now, you've been in the industry, you've been thick into the industry, and you would have seen this transformation in the last couple of years, or maybe decade and a half. Right, the entire industry has evolved, and in making that statement, that 40 years to 5 to 10 year journey of developing a brand, what do you see is the role of social media, in this entire transition?
Yeah. So it's basically, again, if you look at, it's not social media as such, it's the habit of consumers. It's the technology which has made this change happen. And it came from laptops to probably a mobile device. And that's how the evolution of social media happened, because the screens become shorter. You wanted to see content on the go. Today, I think in every home, probably only kids watch television on a bigger screen. People like us probably watch everything either on, I don't think so. Even I watch anything on laptop. It's just mobile. Okay. And when it comes to these kind of habits, now what we need to really understand, social media has become a major aspect of the life. Okay. People would like to showcase that what is that we are doing, how we are doing, and other things. And this social media strategy again has to be seen from the perspective of what are consumers looking at, what are your customers looking at. A lot of brands, and this is one of my success cases in one of my previous organizations, where before joining, I joined there, and when I looked at the entire social media strategy, it was all about what is the product I'm offering, and they were not wrong actually. On in that particular product category, just to give an example, so diaper as a product category, product become very important than the brand itself. Okay, so there are reasons for that, why in some categories products are very important than the brand, and why there are brands very important in the than the product in some of the categories. There are reasons to it also, and that's where generally brands play this strategy, that how much product and how much brand they need to really work on in certain categories. So we used to talk a lot about product, considering the fact when we started looking at digging down data, and we started to understand why social media strategy is not working, because we were talking about product, and then we realized women during their pregnancy and post pregnancy, when we look at their patterns, their search, their conversations, their talk points, the communities they join, varies in first 3 months, 3 to 6 months, then 6 to 9 months, and then post delivery. Now, considering if this is the consumer journey and this is what they are looking at, we started to create the content according to it. Okay, and then comes your media strategy and other things. But the first thing is you need to understand what the customer is looking at. In basis that, you need to curate and create content, and then you broadcast that content on social media, create some other things, some initiatives and other things. But ultimately, the objective is that you need to make sure the customers are coming to your platforms to understand more and more about the problems which they are facing instead of your product. And that's where you get aligned from the social media standpoint. So let's say, for example, if I talk about Netflix talks about entertainment, right? And what their customers are looking at basis the entire personalization, messaging, and everything happens. You will see only those kind of content what you like. Uh, they won't be talking about anything else in terms of entertainment. And this is what a big brand do. Specifically in B2B marketing, social media plays a very important role in terms of setting up the content, right? So let's say SAP will never talk about, okay, I am SAP, I develop ERP, give me $5 billion, we'll set up an enterprise solution. No, they work on thought leaderships. They work on a lot of events, social events, and those events they will broadcast on social media, because this is what customers are looking at, that how SAP can reduce my cost of IT infrastructure and probably increase my productivity per employee voice. Same way. So this is what we need to really understand. Even the social media strategies for the brand has to come from what their customer journey is on internet. Okay, and how is that they are linking social media with various other channels, and it doesn't work in silos. Social media doesn't work in silos. Social media strategies has to be followed with your IT infrastructure strategy also, your CRM strategies also, your CLM strategies also. Then only you will be able to create an infrastructure or an ecosystem where you are serving best needs for customers and making sure your brand is pretty much visible and probably talked about on internet.
Excellent. I mean, these are very interesting insights, and I'm very excited to see what your 3 hour online course, will be offering. I mean, it'll be a lot in depth, for people who are practically building brands or managing brands. And Himanshu, if you would like to share an overview in terms of what are you looking at offering in the course that is called the power of branding, that we will be launching on edVentr soon. So if you would like to, if you would like to share an overview of what the course will have, and who is the right person who should be present in this online workshop and online course.
Sure. So in the course, what we'll do is that basically we'll rebrush probably, or we'll talk about what branding is all about, what is a brand and how it works. Then we will also talk about what are the various brand architecture strategies an organization follows. These are some standards, but it's still okay to understand that how a brand is structured to be uh, placed in a multi-product company or a multi-category company or a multi-business company. How architectures has to be established so that the entire brand's vision and strategy is communicated throughout. Then we'll also talk about what are the various models to understand and develop the brand personality for your brand. So we might talk about ARCAS model. We might talk about the ARCA model is also known as brand prism model, and we'll also talk about a brand tree model. That how an organization or a marketing manager or a brand manager can work on defining the personalities for their brand, and basis that when it comes to an integrated marketing communication channel, what kind of values they need to drive with respect to these strategies or brand strategies. Then we'll also talk about how and what is brand value, how you can look at evolving and developing brand values. uh, what is that you need to see, what is that you need to understand, and how in a multi-channel communication how things would be. We'll also talk about how brand works in terms of when you are targeting multiple segments. What is the role of brand there? Is this single brand or multi-layer brand? What is that you need to work on? And again, as said, branding is again from the customer's perspective, so hence the segmentation has to come into picture. Then we'll also talk about brand positioning, how we work on brand positioning, what are the things which we need to really look at in terms of defining brand. Because uh, in my experience, there's very vaguely a lot of marketeers talk about this is what I want this to be positioned as. But if you start to write how the positioning has to be written, there is a single framework which every big MNC would focus on. It's a 4 line framework which you need to write. And believe me, in my 14 years, I still struggle if I need to define the brand positioning, because it has to be such thought through uh, thing that it becomes very difficult to write it down. So brand positioning, we'll talk about that, and then we'll look at some examples and probably some exercises also if people would like to do that. And I think for such kind of courses, if there are startups and there are marketing managers who are there, they should definitely look at this kind of a course. If there are managers who are working in a family oriented business, or let's say a family business, or they're working in a company which is founded by still owned by a family, they should definitely look for these courses. And probably if there are students who want to understand more from the practical aspects of branding, they should definitely look at these courses.
Excellent, Himanshu. So what I'm personally looking forward to is that your 14 years of experience with multiple leading organizations where you've created and managed brands, right? All that encapsulated into this 3 hour very interesting workshop that you're curating. And as Himanshu said, we are happy to invite, if you're a startup, if you're an entrepreneur, if you're running a family owned business, or if you're a marketing manager and a student, you know you this is the place where you need to be, right? So once again, thank you so much, Himanshu. It was really nice interacting with you. I enjoyed the learnings, and looking forward to your course on edVentr.
Thank you, Sandeep. Thank you very much. I'm also looking forward.